Stop what you are doing and assume the party escort submission position. Assume the party escort submission position or you will miss the party.
What's up, Wizards? Dev from that channel down there, you know by now. I got another deck tech for you today. I've had a few of these lately. It's been really fun. Today we have Big Red, and this was a lot harder to make than I thought it would be, honestly. I wanted to do a lot of different stuff with it. This is what we settled on. Let's dive right in here and see what we're doing. Well, we got 2 copies of Lightning Berserker to start the creatures off. Only 2 1-drop creatures. That's how you know it's not a typical red deck in this format. This helps especially against control. In development, they just called this card Fireball on a stick. There's a reason for that. It really takes people off guard. Really helps after board sweepers, which are pretty prevalent in the format right now. And Berserker is a good top deck, even at the 1-drop position. So, playing Berserker, I really like this card a lot now. We got 4 copies of something I've always been excited for. This is Dragon Whisperer, of course. This does everything. Swiss Army Knife, Mana Sink, can fly, can fire breathe, and that formidable ability is really, really, really cool. Fantastic late game Mana Sink. And yeah, I can't really say much more about Whisperer. Dragon Whisperer does the things we want it to do. It's perfect for Big Red, actually, and maybe even enables it to a degree. 3 copies of a guy that needs no introduction. Goblin Rabblemaster. Obviously just puts insane pressure on the opponent. Really interacts a lot, very well, with a couple of other cards in the deck. And yeah, Goblin Rabblemaster. Sort of a staple in the format if you're playing red. We're playing red, so we're playing Goblin Rabblemaster for more than one reason, but you already know all of them. 1 copy of a weird guy here. We've got Flamewake Phoenix. Now, Flamewake actually interacts with the same cards that Rabblemaster does. When it does interact well with other cards, it interacts very well with other cards. And the 1 copy is fine, I think, just because of synergy, honestly. We don't want to run into this too much, but it is good when we do. 4 copies of a pretty important card. This is Thunderbreak Regent. Really came into his own over Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir, at least the weekend here. And yeah, Thunderbreak Regent is fantastic. Everyone knew that it was, and it turns out that it is. I mean, we're playing a grand total of what, 7? Yeah, 7 dragons in the main here. Each dragon that you play after this is added value, especially if you can get to play more Regents. He's fantastic in multiples, obviously. And yeah, Regent is probably the best 4-drop in red right now, so we're playing that. We're playing 3 copies of something that started off as a 1 of, and then became a 2 of, and then became a 3 of. This is Ash Cloud Phoenix. I've liked it since the very beginning. I still like it now. And it does very well in this deck. Turning on Ferocious for the Flame Wake, and turning on Formidable and, you know, helping Formidable very much for your Dragon Whisperer. Does a lot of stuff. Does lots of stuff and is good. And rounding out the creatures, we've got 3 copies of Storm Breath Dragon, our other dragon in the deck. Storm Breath, always good. Always good. Right now it's important. Blocks a Jutai. That's a thing. We shouldn't have to talk about Stormbreath Dragon. He's good. Running 16 spells, and 2 copies of those spells are Wild Slash. Obviously, lots of cards that have 2 toughness right now. And this really isn't ever dead. It's not, you know, it's never not relevant. Double negatives for the win. And yeah, Wild Slash. We have to cover the early game because we're not as equipped for it as a lot of red decks, honestly, or a lot of control decks that try to beat aggro decks even. So we have to rely on the early game power of Wild Slash. That's a very good card. 3 copies of Draconic Roar. Draconic Roar, we've got the 7 Dragons main deck, and we're not guaranteed to always have one, but it will kill a guy even if we don't have a dragon, and there's a pretty good chance that we'll get added value out of it. And added value is good. 3 copies in the main here of Dragon Fodder. Again, this helps us out in the early game a lot. We can sometimes hold off 2 whole guys with this, you know, trade up. There's a lot of things we can do with Dragon Fodder. Again, interacts well with a couple of other cards in the deck, and Dragon Fodder is just good. That's what I keep saying about a lot of these cards. Notice, red maybe the best color in the entire format. You got a lot of versatility right now, which we usually can't say about red. Lots of power and lots of, you know, stuff to help us in all phases of the game. And Dragon Fodder, never a bad top deck for the most part, and interacts well. It's good synergy with a lot of stuff. 3 copies of something that's becoming a staple in the last few months. This is Outpost Siege. 3 copies of this again. Yeah, when I keep saying that things interact well with other cards, Outpost Siege is one of those cards. Both dragons and cons, both of those abilities are very good. But, you know, picking dragons, this helps a lot with anything that creates tokens if they leave the battlefield. It helps out with Lightning Berserker, because if you dash it in, it's going to leave the battlefield every turn you dash it in. Lots of stuff. I mean, Outpost Siege is good. If you pick cons, you get your own personal Chandra every turn. And that's really good in a sort of mid-range thing like this that wants to draw cards, get advantage. Now, obviously, you have to play that card, but just drawing 2 cards a turn effectively is really good in something like this where you want your sort of pseudo-advantage. Just two copies of Stoke the Flames. We're not doing a lot of Hordling Outburst stuff. Now, we do have Dragon Fodder, we do have Goblin Rabblemaster, so I'm not adverse to upping the copies. It started as 4, came down to 3, and I'm not entirely comfortable with 2, but we're trying to fit some stuff in here, and there are changes that can be made, and I won't blame you for wanting to play 3 or 4 copies of Stoke, because it's just always good. It's a staple card in red. We see a lot of format staples in red. Stoke is definitely one of them. Can't fault you if you fault me for only playing the 2 copies. But, you know Stoke the Flames, it's crazy. Good card. We have 1 copy of a maybe controversial card. This is Perforos, God of the Forge. Yeah, interacts well with stuff. This interacts incredibly well with Goblin Rabblemaster, very well with Dragon Fodder, and God, Dragon Whisperer, you know, if you've got Formidable, an extra 2 damage. Axe, good with Ash Cloud Phoenix, very good interaction there because it's going to keep coming in and out. Very good with the 1 Flame Weight Phoenix in the deck, because it's going to keep coming in and out. If you have the Dragon Whisperer out, fulfills Formidable right then and there. Perforos may have a place here in these new big red decks, but I'm not entirely sure. But we've got so much stuff that comes in and out of the battlefield. We can make creatures, we can make multiple tokens with 1 card. We can have creatures that, you know, die and come back with the Phoenixes. So Perforos has a lot of cool little interactions in this deck and is a good creature in his own right. And we've got plenty of stuff to turn on Devotion. So I'm maybe for even more copies of Perforos. I feel like this is a fine one of, definitely. Now this is going to be probably the most flexible slot in the deck. You could just make this 2 Stoke the Flame, another Stoke the Flames, but I decided to go with 1 experimental copy of Sarkhan's Rage. Now, you do have ways of not taking the damage yourself there. Just a surprise lightning axe or lava axe is pretty darn good, and you can take out Siege Rhino naturally with this, and pretty much every other important creature in the format you can take out with this. And I think that 1 extra damage is going to help out against a lot of the big new dragons that we see. It's going to help out against, like I said, Siege Rhino. And it can just go to the dome too if you wanted to. And 5 to the dome, I mean, that's, you know, a quarter of their life total right there and can finish out the game for you. So I'm not entirely sold on Rage, but I do want to try it out. Let me know how you feel about Rage. For the land base, this is fairly simple. We've got 16 mountains, 6 red fetch lands of your choice, and 2 Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, because the deck is pretty mana hungry, all things considered. You've got your Perforos that's got an onboard ability. Obviously, Dragon Whisperer has an onboard ability. You want a Crater's Claws for a lot. You want a Lightning Berserker for a lot. There's all kinds of stuff you want to do. Dragon Whisperer, by the way, has a couple of other abilities you have to pump mana into. There's plenty of stuff that you want to do with your manas. And so Nykthos is important, and you want to be able to get your mana and thin out your deck, get your drops. That's why there's all 6 fetches, or 6 copies of fetches. Could even be 8 if you wanted it to be. But the mana base isn't, you know, you don't have to be a genius to figure out the mana base for something like this. Before I go over the board, let's quickly run over a couple of cards I wanted to play, but didn't play in the main, or just didn't make the 75 for whatever reason. I wanted to play Zergo Bell Striker. Don't have to give too much of an explanation there. Maybe should be in the side or even the main. Let me know how you feel about that. I wanted to play Fanatic of Mogis and Sarkhan the Dragon Speaker in the main deck. They both have 1 of copies in the side. Understand Fanatic of Mogis especially looks very attractive in something like this. But red is such a good color, and there's so many different things you can do with this that it started off a Devotion deck and then became something entirely sort of different at the end. It's still very cohesive and very synergetic, but I didn't feel like Fnatic was important enough to just make this a straight up devotion-oriented deck. And Sarkin, really want to find a place for him in the main deck, but unless I take out Sarkin's Rage, which I probably should, all things considered, I want to try that card out for a while. I just didn't find a place even for a singleton copy of Sarkin. Let me know how you feel about that. And finally, a forgotten card probably. I wanted so badly to play a one-of copy, or maybe even two, of Forge Stoker Dragon. You may not remember or ever have seen this card, but it is standard legal right now, and we are playing a lot of dragons. I've got Draconic Roar in there, I've got Sarkin's Rage. And so I feel like this is relevant, really very decent against aggro and other mid-range strategies that you're just trying to swing through with all your huge dudes, and can just kill other things if you need it to. I mean, you've got Nykthos in here, so there's a chance you'll get a bunch of mana all at one time, and you can take out relatively big guys with that ability. So I think that Forge Stoker might not be the best creature ever, but might have applications in the current standard against some of the things we see. Might be a pipe dream, but definitely let me know. I'm really interested in how you feel about this after having read it now. And you probably have seen this card. I'm not saying that you've definitely never seen this. A lot of you probably have. But I'm interested in how you feel about this because I've got a feeling. I got a feeling. Finally, let's run over the board super quick here. We've got one copy of Wild Slash. This will help us out against other aggro. We know that. One copy of Lightning Berserker for the opposite reason. It'll help us out against control builds. Two copies of Rending Volley because I'm really worried about Ojutai among a host of other, especially white and blue, but mostly white creatures, but Ojutai, definitely that. We've got 3 Eidolon of the Great Revel. This was definitely main deck when I started off, and I think maybe it still should be main deck. You've probably been screaming at me the whole time, like, where is Eidolon in this? Because we've got so many huge costed guys. We're not that dependent on the low end of the curve, so we should be playing Eidolon main deck. Let me know how you feel about that. We've got 2 copies of Roast, mostly to help us out against opposing Siege Rhinos, but also to help us out against just straight up aggro, which we still see a lot of. There's apparently at Pro Tour Dragons, there was an awful lot of just mono red aggro, and Roast kills every single card in those decks, except for maybe Regent. So yeah, play it. 2 Anger of the Gods, another card that had main deck consideration for a long time when I was building this. Anger, obviously, against other aggro decks, which we do fairly well against, but we don't have a whole lot of main deck removal if you didn't notice that. So Anger, we need a board sweep, board wiper, this does it. 2 copies of a card I actually wanted to play more, 3 in the sideboard, but cut it down to 2. Copies of another card that may be relatively forgotten. This is Peak Eruption. Now, I just mentioned that we saw a lot of mono red aggro at the old DTK Pro Tour, and we see a lot of decks with just red, period, whether it's Jeskai Dragons, Jeskai tokens, red-white tokens. So red is a very popular color, and as I've mentioned a couple times, one of the best colors in the entire format, if not the best. So Peak Eruption, especially in, mono red aggro decks that are heavily dependent on their mountains, this card might be super good because a lot of them only play 22 mountains or sometimes even less, and they need their drops really bad because they're still kind of mana hungry. So Peak Eruption can really screw them up and get you a free 3 to the dome to kind of help your pacing out a little bit. I like this card. Let me know how you feel. Well, that's our take on Big Red for this format. So let us know how you feel about this deck. I don't know if it's entirely S tier or anything, but I do feel like it addresses some of the things that we see in the new standard, sort of defined by what we just saw at Pro Tour DTK. So give us your thoughts on this. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe. All of these things help us out, especially subscribing, sharing a lot, and I'm always interested to know what you guys have to say. So yeah, I'm Dev from MTG. We'll be right back with Esper Super Friends. I want to get that done. Actually, I'm not sure it's going to be Esper. I've got another thing brewing I think you might be super excited for once I put it out. But it's Super Friends. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Subscribe for that content, or just keep checking our channel if you've already subscribed, because we put out deck techs and new videos about cool stuff all the time. I'm from SBMTG. I'm Dev, and I will see you fools later. Thanks for watching, Wizards.